Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, April 5th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Local and state lawmakers are taking aim once again at gun laws. This after the arrest of two brothers tonight in connection with a deadly mass shooting in Sacramento. As KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado shows us, victims' rights advocates are strengthening their resolve for tougher legislation.
The trauma. We immediately think of the trauma.
Lonnie and Sandy Phillips say they immediately thought of the victims' families when they saw the news of Sunday's mass shooting in Sacramento, where 6 people were killed and a dozen injured. They know that pain. Their 24-year-old daughter, Jessie, a journalist, was killed in a mass shooting in a Colorado movie theater in 2012.
She was the light of our life, and we were so proud of the woman that she had become.
They're now dedicated to helping victims and survivors of gun violence through their nonprofit, Survivors Empowered.
That's what Jessie would want us to be doing. She had a huge heart for others. She had a huge heart for people that were suffering or needed help.
They support California's tough gun laws and the package of new ones, including 2 that would allow private citizens to sue anyone in the gun industry whose products cause them harm. One of them is mirrored after the Texas abortion ban. The couple lost everything after they attempted to sue the retailer that sold thousands of dollars worth of ammunition to the man who killed their daughter.
Federal legislation passed in 2005 that shields the gun manufacturing industry specifically from some of these harms.
That's State Assembly member Chris Ward, who represents San Diego's 78th District. He says people like the Phillips are why he introduced AB 1594, a law that would override federal law.
From production, manufacturing, down to the point of sale, who is violating a state or a local nuisance ordinance, they would be held liable then for the harms caused by their products.
He says this latest mass shooting strengthens his resolve to continue the fight.
Heartbreaking for the victims. I don't want something to become so numb that we're complacent, that we accept this as a normal.
We reached out to several gun rights activists. We did not hear back. But groups like the San Diego Gun Owners Association argue passing more laws in California only punishes legal gun owners, not the criminals who continue to commit violent crimes, despite the more than 100 state laws already in place. And they will continue to challenge the laws they say violate the Second Amendment in court. The Phillips say if California's gun laws were to be implemented nationwide, it would prevent more tragedies like the one that took their daughter's life 10 years ago and the 6 people this week.
You can actually trace it and track it now, so we know that better gun laws work.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Ukraine's president is urging the world not to look away from the massacres taking place in his country. During an address before the United Nations, President Zelensky spoke passionately to convince world leaders to send more support.
A sobering and graphic account of alleged atrocities at the hands of Russian soldiers.
They killed entire families, adults and children, and they tried to burn the bodies.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky demanding accountability, telling world leaders Russia's actions are no different than a terror group.
The most terrible war crimes of all times are we see since the end of World War II.
One big distinction, he says, Russia is a permanent member of the UN Security Council.
Where is the security that the Security Council needs to guarantee? It's not there.
His address comes just one day after visiting mass graves in Bucha, a massacre exposed for the world to see. A growing number of leaders, including President Biden, want Russian President Vladimir Putin on trial for war crimes.
It's a deliberate campaign to kill, to torture, to rape, to commit atrocities.
NATO is now gathering evidence to prove it, according to the alliance's U.S. ambassador. Yet the Kremlin is doubling down, calling the massacre fake. But mass graves and bodies can even be seen from space via satellite imagery. On the front lines, the violence is nonstop. Terrifying moments as a CNN crew comes under artillery fire outside Mykolaiv.
Down here, John, down here.
Danger Ukrainians face every day. In Washington, Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
San Diego County officially has a new sheriff tonight. Anthony Ray, a 30-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department, was sworn in as interim sheriff during today's Board of Supervisors meeting. Ray will hold the office until January, when the winner of the November election takes over. So far, 4 people are in the running for the permanent post. A potential strike by thousands of Southern California grocery store workers may have been averted. The workers' union reached a tentative agreement with the major grocery chains. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen has the details.
Details of the new 3-year agreement with Ralph's, Vons, and Albertsons haven't been released yet, but the United Food and Commercial Workers Union says it includes, quote, significant wage increases, along with stronger health benefits, guaranteed hours for part-time workers, improved store security, and a secure pension. The union says it is not commenting further on the deal until its members have a chance to review it. The union has been asking for a $5 an hour raise, phased in over 3 years, as well as predictable work schedules and more store security. In a statement, Ralph says, "We are pleased that this agreement allows us to put more money in our associates' paychecks and secures health care and pension plans." Workers at Ralph's, Albertsons, and Vons voted last week to authorize the strike if an agreement was not reached. They have been working without a contract since March 6th. Union members are set to vote on the proposed contract next week. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
Today is the final day voters can cast ballots in the special election for California's 80th Assembly District. KPBS Speak City Heights reporter Jacob Ayer says the special election is being held to select a replacement to serve out the remainder of former Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez's term.
Nearly 250,000 ballots were sent out to voters for Tuesday's special election for California's 80th Assembly District, which encompasses the southern part of San Diego and most of Chula Vista and National City. The candidates running to replace Lorena Gonzalez are David Alvarez, Georgette Gomez, and Lincoln Picard. San Diego County Registrar of Voters Cynthia Paz says the last chance to cast a ballot is tonight before 8 p.m.
We mailed out nearly 250,000 mail ballots. So far, we have just over 32,000 back in house that have been processed and ready to go into the count tonight.
Paz says the first round of results will be coming out shortly after polls close.
So shortly after 8 p.m., we will release our first set of unofficial election night results that will include all of the mail ballots that we've received and been able to process prior to Election Day. It will also include all of the in-person voting that has taken place.
Paz says a second update for the final unofficial election results will come out before the end of day Tuesday. If one candidate gets more than half of the votes, that person will win the seat outright. If no one does, there will be a runoff with the top 2 candidates on June 7th, the same day as the regular primary election for the next term, representing the redrawn district.
So potentially we could have 2 contests for the 80th Assembly District, one for the remainder of the current term and one for the new term starting next year.
Paz says 9 voting centers and 21 mail ballot drop-off locations are open on Election Day. There will be another unofficial update to the vote count on April 7th, with final election votes to be certified on April 14th. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
If you need some help finding your polling place, you can head to kpbs.org and then click on the special election banner that you can find on our homepage. And after the polls close, it's there you'll find the latest election results. The San Diego City Council officially established the city's first Privacy Advisory Council, which will review how the city uses surveillance and personal data. It's been over a year in the making. As KPBS Race and Equity reporter Christina Kim explains, it's only one part of the city's moves toward increased oversight.
Nearly a year and a half after it was first passed, the San Diego City Council officially established the city's first privacy advisory board. Council Pro Tem President Monica Montgomery Stepp, the board's top advocate on the city council, called it an important first step for stronger privacy protections.
Oversight is a good thing. That I can speak and say that I think that technology is imperative in the way that we conduct city business. But that does not mean that we get a blank check to do so.
The new board will give advice and recommendations on the city's use of surveillance technologies and personal data, as well as review the city's new and existing surveillance technologies. It will also hold regular public meetings. Lily Irani is a professor of communication at UCSD and a member of the Trust Coalition, which consulted with Monica Montgomery Stepp's office in creating the board. She says Muslim and communities of color have led the way in calling for increased oversight. But oversight is good for all San Diegans.
This ordinance is really important because no matter who you are or what your day-to-day concerns are, data technologies are being built and sold to the highest bidder to kind of make predictions and decisions about all of our lives. And we need to have insight into that, and we need to have oversight over that.
Irani says the board should discuss and review the use of technologies such as smart streetlights and shot spotters, which identify locations of gunfire. Advocates have long said these tools disproportionately impact communities of color. Several callers called into Tuesday's meeting in support of the board. Among them was Gary Bunyard, a spokesperson for ShotSpotter.
ShotSpotter is fully supportive of San Diego's efforts to make the deployment of these technologies more transparent.
Irani says that while today's decision is an accomplishment, there's still work to be done.
The Privacy Advisory Board isn't going to be enough. We're still waiting for the Surveillance Oversight Ordinance.
The second ordinance would require police and other city departments to seek approval from City Council for any new technology. It's currently being reviewed as part of the meet and confer process with city unions. Cristina Kim, KPBS News.
After hours of public comment, the San Diego City Council voted to move forward with a no-fault evictions moratorium. That's when a tenant is evicted despite paying rent and obeying the lease, but the landlord wants to leave the rental market, move into the property, or remodel. The ban will end on September 30th or 60 days after the local state of emergency, whichever comes first. The City Council must rehear the ordinance before it can be enforced. San Diego has a new independent budget analyst. The City Council on Monday voted to appoint Charles Modica to the position, which serves as an independent check on the mayor's office. Mayor Todd Gloria will unveil a new budget proposal later this month. Modica says his office will be comparing that budget with the City Council and the public have been asking for.
We will call those out if they're included. We will call them out if they're not included. And do so in a way that hopefully anyone who reads our report on the budget can understand what's there, what's not, and make sure that we have a responsible and balanced budget.
The position of independent budget analyst was created during San Diego's 2004 financial crisis. Modica is only the second person to serve as IBA. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is under scrutiny. As Amy Kiley reports, a month-long sweeping review is set to begin. This as funding issues are coming into question.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is used to scrutinizing science. Now the agency itself is under the microscope. Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says the Department of Health will conduct a sweeping review starting next Monday. In a memo to staff, Walensky says it's to improve how the agency communicates with the public and consider a restructuring. That news comes the same day as a bipartisan deal Senator Mitt Romney helped negotiate for his chamber. It's for $10 billion of COVID relief money. The measure would fund therapeutics like oral antiviral pills, and it would support vaccines, testing, and research. What it would not do is send money directly to the CDC. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says he wants to vote on the measure this week.
On COVID, very briefly,
Over the last few days, my Democratic colleagues and I continued talks with Senator Romney and Republicans, working all hours of the night and into the weekend.
This is clearly a huge focus for the president because of the dire need we have at this moment to get this funding through.
The White House says it would like more money in the plan.
Even as we're very encouraged by the progress, we're going to need more because our objective here is to make sure we can have funding for antivirals, the vaccines needed for people for many months to come.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
The Trump administration's aggressive immigration enforcement measures are seeing more policy changes. The Biden administration is instructing Immigration and Customs Enforcement attorneys to consider dismissing some deportation cases that are not arrest priorities. The American Immigration Lawyers Association estimates about 700,000 backlogged cases out of more than 1 million are low priority. The directive comes as the potential of a surge in border crossings next month after the repeal of the public health order. It's been 2 months since a SEAL candidate died at a Coronado hospital after completing training known as Hell Week. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says the cause of death still hasn't been released.
24-year-old Kyle Mullen died after the grueling Hell Week, 5 days of near constant motion with little sleep. Dick Couch has consulted with Naval Special Warfare for 30 years. He says SEALs have made changes after previous basic training deaths, including allowing anyone to call for a safety halt for any reason.
Nobody wants to say, I'm cold. I'm really cold. And my core temperature is going through, is on the way down and I'm in trouble. Nobody wants to admit that. So that's incumbent upon instructors to watch these people very, very closely because quite often, and I can't speak to this individual, their motivation exceeds their physical tolerance for pain.
Mullen had finished Hell Week the morning of the day he died. The Navy says he was not in active training. According to the death certificate, Mullen died at Sharp, Coronado at 5:35 p.m. No operation was performed. His body was released to the family 2 weeks later. Couch says he expects changes to the SEAL basic training.
The objective is not to hurt people. The objective is to train them and to find out who possess the ability to acquire the skills to be a Navy SEAL.
Last week, Mullen's mother, Marie Knapp, told Good Morning America that she spoke with him the afternoon of his death. Knapp is a nurse, and she believes he showed signs of swimming-induced pulmonary edema, where fluid builds up in the lungs, and that he wasn't being carefully monitored, even though Mullen showed similar symptoms during training in January. The Navy says it won't release further details until the autopsy is complete. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. According to AAA, every day 9 people are killed in crashes that could have been prevented. They want everyone to think twice before reaching for their phone while behind the wheel. That's why Imani Lawrence shared her story today. Her grandmother was killed by a distracted driver. Then Imani herself was injured in a separate crash.
Something that we don't even think about is a phone. You know, we wouldn't think that that is a weapon to kill someone, but it's so distracting what it does to the brain when someone is driving, and it takes so many lives. My grandmother's could have been mine.
In 2020, more than 3,000 people were killed because of a distracted driver. 105 of those incidents were here in California.
Make sure your air conditioners are in good condition, folks. We are heating up through the rest of the week. Nice and sunny, so if you like it hot, this is not a bad week for you. But seriously, we're looking at some potential record-breaking temperatures heading through San Diego County over the next few days. Let's get started with what's happening tonight. Not so bad, right? 57 degrees, mainly clear, a few clouds here and there, but that's about it. Let's take a look a little wider around San Diego County. Out to Borrego Springs, 64 degrees. That's your early morning low. Mount Laguna, 55 degrees. Ramona, 49. Escondido out to 53 degrees as we head into those very early hours of the morning. So if you like it a little bit cooler, go out for a very early morning walk or maybe a late night stroll, whichever you prefer, I suppose. Tomorrow, we'll start to see those temperatures climb degree by degree, but this is just the start. Oceanside, 78 degrees tomorrow. That's not so bad. San Diego, 74. Chula Vista, 78 degrees, but El Cajon out to 91 already, 89 in Ramona. Borrego Springs, 95 degrees. And looking at Mount Laguna, staying nice and cool in the higher elevations at 65. But as we head through the next few days, you will notice the temperatures climbing. Look, as we get through Thursday and Friday along the coast, a quick jump from the 70s to the mid-80s. So make sure that you are prepared for a hot one. Back to the 60s by Sunday, so you'll get some relief. But just midweek or really the end of the week, we start to really boil up here. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, inland, we're looking at the mid and upper 90s by Friday, before falling back to the 70s on Sunday as some cooler air moves in. The mountains, we're looking at the 60s for a few days, not so bad, but then back to the 50s. I mean, look, if you like it a little cooler, that's where you got to go. But then let's take a look a little further along into the desert. Woohoo, 100 degrees on Saturday before dropping back to the mid-80s on Sunday. Stay cool. I'm Christina Shalhoop here for KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, we speak to the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations about the atrocities uncovered in Ukraine. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A homecoming more than 2 years in the making. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman was at Rady Children's Hospital today, where a young patient got a special send-off.
After 848 days, 2-year-old Addie Smith is going home for the first time ever. She was born premature in December 2019 and developed a chronic lung disease. Her condition was so severe that she wasn't able to leave the hospital. There were even times it was unclear if she would ever go home.
She gave everyone kind of a run for their money, but she held out, and she's the sweetest little thing in the whole world.
And we always said, you know, the phrase was, Addie's driving the bus.
Her parents, Alicia and Chris, have been by her side the entire time. Her discharge was also the first time Addie was able to spend some real time with her little brother. Doctors say they have never seen a case like Addie's before. She had ongoing respiratory failure and constantly needed to be on a ventilator.
She had very critically ill lungs, and we really struggled to help support her. But the parents persevered, and she persevered, and we found a way to help her get home.
848 days is the longest that a patient has ever been here at Rady Children's Hospitals. Addie's parents say they're just looking forward to being home with her and being together as a complete family.
It's really everything. You know, our son, who is 6 months, you know, we haven't been able to spend as much time with him as obviously we would have liked to, because we're here with Addie, and you know, we had to prioritize all of that, and just to be able to have both of them home under the one roof together is everything.
Addie's discharge brought together dozens of family, friends, and caretakers. Being hospitalized during the pandemic meant that family and friends really couldn't see her much. Addie's grandparents say after 2 years, they have some ground to make up.
Being together at Christmas, being together for her birthday, just enjoying those times. We have hardly held her or seen her in 2 years. We have missed so much, but we'll make up. We'll make up for it.
Doctors are hopeful that Addie's lungs will continue to grow, even to a point where she can be off of a ventilator one day. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
What a great story. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando is keeping an eye on what's streaming. She recently caught up with the stars of a new British spy series on Apple TV+.
You won't find slow horses in cinemas, but it's absolutely cinematic. The new Apple original show brings Mick Herron's book to vivid life and delivers a British spy story, but with a twist.
These are the screw-ups. They're about as far away from James Bond and Jason Bourne as you could imagine them to be.
Screw-ups like River Cartwright, played by Jack Lowden, who gets sent to Slow House, where the agents are derogatorily referred to as slow horses.
You know, they're dead weight. They're an embarrassment to the service. It doesn't sound that beguiling, but there is such charm and character and accessibility to these characters that these are the guys you really want to hang with.
Characters such as Gary Oldman's Jackson Lamb, who oversees the misfit slow horses and enjoys pushing their buttons.
I can imagine going down the list and thinking, yeah, give him to me. I'll give him 6 months. He'll be gone. Yeah, she won't last. Yeah, I can drive her absolutely mad. I give that 6 weeks. She'll be gone.
I don't normally do these kind of speeches, but this feels like a big moment. Working with you has been the lowest point in a disappointing career.
I'm going to break that ego.
Piece by piece.
I'm going to take you apart, boy.
Lamb's abusive approach is like another form of training or testing and reveals his character.
He's a guy who uses his own humor as a weapon.
Kristen Scott Thomas plays Lamb's boss, Diana Tavener.
Tension and humor go absolutely hand in hand, because if you make somebody feel relaxed and you give them a laugh, then you really can astonish them with something else afterward.
Slow Horses is the first, but hopefully not the last of Mick Herron's novels to be adapted to the small screen. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And there it is, a thrilling end to March Madness. The University of Kansas won their 4th NCAA title, erasing a 16-point deficit in the second half to beat the University of North Carolina. Final score, 72-69. It was the biggest comeback in national championship history. Congratulations. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.